The massive alien mothership hung in Earth's orbit like a dark moon, casting shadows across entire continents. Ambassador Zexthu clicked his mandibles in satisfaction as he reviewed the intelligence reports on his holographic display. Earth's defenses looked pathetic compared to the Galactic Empire's military might. "These humans are primitives," he told his subordinate, Commander Veltar. "They still use projectile weapons and chemical propulsion. Their strongest military force calls itself the United States of America. Our assassin teams should eliminate their leadership within solar cycles." The Galactic Empire had conquered over 3,000 worlds using the same strategy. Send in the Shadowblade assassins first, eliminate key leaders and military commanders, then sweep in with the main fleet to claim another planet for the Empire. It had never failed. Zexthu pulled up images of human cities. Look at their primitive architecture. No energy shields, no plasma barriers. Their leaders walk around in the open like prey animals. This will be the easiest conquest in Empire history. But what the Empire didn't understand was that humans had been perfecting the art of warfare for thousands of years. While other species developed energy weapons and shields, humanity had refined something far more dangerous: the ability to turn ordinary objects into instruments of death and ordinary people into unstoppable killing machines. In a military base deep in Virginia, General Marcus Stone received the classified report about the alien vessel. His weathered face remained calm as he read about the Empire's ultimatum, demanding Earth's immediate surrender. The Joint Chiefs were panicking, calling for nuclear strikes and desperate evacuation plans. Stone had a different idea. He picked up his secure phone and dialed a number that didn't officially exist. "This is Stone. I need the Ghost Protocol activated immediately." "Yes, all of them. Every single operator we have." Within hours, encrypted messages went out to retired soldiers, former CIA operatives, and discharged Special Forces personnel across America. Men and women who had disappeared into civilian life, becoming teachers, mechanics, store clerks, and farmers. People the government had trained to be invisible, deadly, and completely loyal to protecting American soil. The message was simple. Code Black. Foreign invasion imminent. Weapons free. God bless America. Among those who received the message was Jake Morrison, a 40-year-old auto mechanic in small-town Montana. To his neighbors, he was just a quiet veteran who kept to himself and had an impressive gun collection. What they didn't know was that Jake had been the most lethal sniper in American military history, with over 200 confirmed kills in Iraq and Afghanistan. Jake read the message twice, then walked to his garage. Behind a false wall lay his old equipment: a custom-modified Barrett M82A1 rifle, night vision scopes that could spot a target from over a mile away, and enough ammunition to fight a small war. He hadn't touched these weapons in 5 years, but muscle memory kicked in as he began field stripping and cleaning each piece. "Looks like retirement's over," he muttered, checking the rifle's scope calibration. Meanwhile, the Empire's first wave of Shadowblade assassins materialized in major cities around the world. These weren't ordinary soldiers. They were genetically enhanced killers with cloaking technology, enhanced reflexes, and weapons that could cut through steel like paper. Each assassin stood 7 feet tall, with forearms and natural armor plating that could stop most human weapons. In Washington, D.C., 3 Shadowblades phased through the White House's outer defenses. Their mission was simple: eliminate the human leaders and broadcast their deaths across the planet to break human morale. The aliens moved like liquid shadow through the corridors, invisible to human eyes and confident in their superiority. What they didn't expect was Sergeant First Class Maria Rodriguez, who had been assigned to Presidential Security Detail after serving 3 tours as an Army Ranger. She couldn't see the aliens, but 15 years of combat experience had taught her to trust her instincts when something felt wrong. The first Shadowblade made the mistake of moving too close to Rodriguez's position. She felt the air displacement and reacted instantly, diving sideways while drawing her sidearm. The alien's plasma blade sliced through the air where her head had been a split second before. "Contact. Invisible hostiles in the White House." Rodriguez screamed into her radio while emptying her magazine in the direction of the disturbance. The bullets didn't penetrate the alien's armor, but they revealed its position as sparks flew from the impact points. Within minutes, the building was in full lockdown. The aliens had expected to face terrified, helpless humans. Instead, they found themselves trapped in a fortress full of Trained killers who adapted to the threat with frightening speed. The Shadowblade's biggest advantage had always been their invisibility and the panic they caused. But these humans didn't panic. They marked the aliens' positions with tracer rounds, used thermal imaging to track heat signatures, and coordinated their attacks with military precision that surprised the Empire forces. By the end of the first day, only one of the 3 White House assassins remained alive, and it was trapped in the building's basement, wounded and running low on power for its cloaking device. The other 2 had been brought down by concentrated fire from Secret Service agents who refused to retreat, even when facing superior alien technology. Around the world, similar scenarios played out. The Empire had expected an easy victory against primitive humans. Instead, their elite assassins found themselves hunted by ghosts, humans who seemed to appear from nowhere, strike with devastating precision, and vanish before the aliens could retaliate. In his command ship, Ambassador Zexthu stared at the casualty reports in disbelief. In just 24 hours, humanity had eliminated nearly 30% of his advance force. This had never happened before. No species had ever fought back so effectively against the Shadowblades. Impossible, he clicked, his mandibles chattering with nervous energy. How are these primitives detecting our stealth technology? Commander Veltar pulled up tactical data. Sir, it appears these humans don't rely on technology to hunt. They're using primitive instincts, environmental awareness, and coordinated pack tactics. Our soldiers report that the humans seem to anticipate their movements. What the Empire couldn't understand was that humans had evolved as persistence hunters. For millions of years, humanity's ancestors had tracked and killed prey that was faster, stronger, and better armed than they were. That instinct hadn't disappeared with civilization. It had been refined into modern warfare doctrine. The war for Earth had begun, and humanity was about to teach the Galactic Empire why apex predators should never be underestimated. Jake Morrison crouched in the abandoned grain silo, watching the alien patrol through his scope. 3 Shadowblade assassins moved through the Montana countryside, their cloaking devices shimmering like heat waves in the morning sun. They thought they were invisible, but Jake had been tracking dangerous prey long before he'd ever heard of aliens. The Empire forces had made their first mistake by landing in rural America. These weren't city streets with cameras and witnesses. This was hunting country, where every ridge and valley held someone who could put a bullet through a deer's heart at 300 yards. The aliens had stumbled into the world's largest armed population, spread across terrain they'd been fighting over for generations. Jake adjusted his breathing and squeezed the trigger. The modified Barrett roared, sending a .50 caliber round through the lead alien's center mass. The creature's armor held for a split second before the sheer kinetic force shattered it like glass. Blue blood sprayed across the wheat field as the alien dropped. The other 2 Shadowblades spun around trying to locate the shooter. Jake was already moving, using an old deer trail to relocate before they could target his position. This wasn't his first rodeo. He'd spent years hunting insurgents who knew the terrain better than he did. These aliens were just bigger targets. In downtown New York, former Delta Force operator Captain Sarah Chen had turned the subway tunnels into a nightmare for Empire forces. The aliens' superior technology meant nothing in the cramped, dark passages beneath the city. Chen and her improvised team of transit cops, gang members, and construction workers had been picking off alien patrols for 3 days straight. Remember, Chen whispered to her mixed crew, these things rely on their tech too much. Take out their equipment first, then hammer them with everything you've got. Tommy, you still got those welding torches? Tommy Castellano, a union worker who'd been fixing subway tracks when the invasion started, nodded grimly. Yeah, and Marco brought some industrial adhesive from his construction site. We can blind these things permanently. The aliens had energy weapons that could cut through steel, but they'd never faced humans who fought dirty. Chen's people used everything from Molotov cocktails to jury-rigged explosives made from subway maintenance supplies. When a Shadowblade squad entered their section of tunnel, they found themselves stuck to the walls with industrial cement, while humans with blowtorches systematically destroyed their equipment. Meanwhile, the Empire's command ship received increasingly desperate reports from the surface. Their advanced warriors were being defeated by humans using primitive weapons and guerrilla tactics that made no sense according to galactic warfare doctrine. Sir, Commander Veltar reported to Ambassador Zexthu We've lost contact with 60% of our ground forces. The humans aren't following any recognized battle patterns. They're attacking from impossible positions, using weapons that shouldn't be effective against our armor, and coordinating without any apparent command structure. Zexthu's forearms gestured angrily. This is impossible. We're dealing with a species that hasn't even achieved faster-than-light travel. How are they destroying soldiers who have conquered entire star systems? What the Empire didn't understand was that humans had been preparing for this war their entire history, even if they didn't know it. Every video game, every action movie, every hunting trip had been practiced for the day when humanity would face an enemy with superior technology and firepower. In Texas, retired Marine Gunnery Sergeant Rodriguez had organized the local sheriff's department and volunteer fire brigade into an effective resistance cell. They'd been using hunting blinds and deer feeders to set up ambush points along the highways where alien patrols traveled. These things move in patterns, Rodriguez explained to Sheriff Williams and the volunteer fighters. Just like animals, they've got routines, preferred routes, and predictable behavior. We set up the killing zone here, where the road curves around Miller's Pond. They'll be bunched up and moving single file. The sheriff looked skeptical. But Rodriguez, these are space aliens with ray guns. Are you sure our hunting rifles will even work? Rodriguez spat into the dirt. Bullets are bullets, Sheriff. These things bleed just like everything else. You put enough lead in the right places, they go down. Trust me, I've been killing things that were trying to kill me for 25 years. When the alien patrol came around the bend, they walked into a crossfire that had been designed by men who'd spent their lives hunting wild boar and white-tailed deer. The alien's armor might stop 1 or 2 rifle rounds, but it couldn't handle 15 hunters firing simultaneously from concealed positions. The ambush lasted less than 30 seconds. When the smoke cleared, 4 Shadowblade assassins lay dead on the asphalt, their blue blood mixing with motor oil and rainwater. The humans melted back into the countryside before any reinforcements could arrive. Similar scenes played out across America. In Alaska, bush pilots were using their planes to guide hunting parties to alien landing sites. In Louisiana, Cajun fishermen had turned the bayous into a maze where alien patrols simply disappeared without a trace. In Montana, ranchers were using cattle dogs to track invisible aliens by scent. The Empire had based their invasion plan on conquering civilized species who fought according to military doctrine. They'd never encountered a population where nearly every adult male had military training, hunting experience, or both. They'd never faced an enemy where grandmothers knew how to field strip an assault rifle and teenagers could build explosives from farm chemicals. Jake Morrison's radio crackled as he watched another alien patrol from his new position in an abandoned barn. Ghost 7, this is Ghost Command. What's your situation? Command, this is Ghost 7. I've got eyes on a squad of 6 hostiles moving through Sector 12. Permission to engage? Ghost 7, you are weapons free. Remember, these things learn fast. Don't use the same tactic twice, Jake smiled grimly. The aliens might learn, but humans had been adapting and improvising since before they'd discovered fire. He'd already modified his ammunition with white phosphorus tips that would burn through alien armor like it was paper. Let them try to adapt to that. As he lined up his shot, Jake thought about his daughter safely evacuated to a government bunker somewhere in Colorado. The Empire had picked the wrong species to mess with. Humans didn't just fight to win. They fought to protect their families, their homes, and their way of life. The Barrett roared again, and another alien warrior discovered why humans had clawed their way to the top of their planet's food chain through pure, stubborn violence. The Galactic Empire was about to learn that there was a big difference between conquering a civilized species and invading a planet full of armed rednecks who considered shooting things both a hobby and a constitutional right. In his command ship, Ambassador Zexthu stared at the casualty reports and felt something he'd never experienced before. Fear. The humans weren't just resisting invasion. They were actively hunting his soldiers with a ferocity that defied all galactic military doctrine. Sir, Beltar reported nervously, perhaps we should request reinforcements from the Empire fleet. Zexthu's mandibles clicked anxiously. Send the message, and prepare for a full orbital bombardment. If we can't conquer these humans conventionally, we'll sterilize the planet from space. But unknown to the Empire, humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their rifles or their fighting spirit. It was their absolute refusal to surrender. even when facing impossible odds. The real war was just beginning. General Stone stood in the underground bunker beneath NORAD, watching tactical displays that showed alien forces retreating from major population centers. The Empire's ground invasion was failing spectacularly, but intelligence reports indicated they were preparing for orbital bombardment. "Sir," Colonel Martinez approached with a tablet full of reports. "The Ghost Protocol has exceeded all expectations. We've confirmed over 400 alien casualties with minimal losses on our side, but satellite imagery shows they're positioning their ships for bombardment runs." Stone nodded grimly. "Time to activate the real surprise. Get me a secure line to every military installation in the country, and patch me through to the civilian emergency broadcast network." What the Galactic Empire didn't know was that America had been preparing for invasion scenarios since the Cold War. Not just alien invasion, any invasion. The country's massive civilian gun ownership wasn't an accident or a cultural quirk. It was a deliberate defensive strategy that turned every neighborhood into a potential fortress and every citizen into a possible soldier. Across America, emergency broadcasts interrupted regular television programming. General Stone's weathered face appeared on screens from Maine to California. "My fellow Americans, as you know, our planet is under attack by hostile alien forces. The enemy has superior technology, but they've made one critical mistake. They've invaded the United States of America, and they're about to learn why that was the worst decision in galactic history." In small towns across the country, Americans gathered around televisions in bars, community centers, and living rooms. These weren't panicked civilians. These were the descendants of people who'd fought off British invasions, survived the Civil War, and won 2 world wars. Every American with military experience, law enforcement background, or hunting license is hereby activated as part of the Continental Defense Force. Report to your local National Guard armory for equipment distribution. We're not just fighting for our country, we're fighting for our planet. The broadcast continued with specific instructions that made the Empire's intelligence officers confused and terrified. Americans weren't evacuating or hiding. They were organizing into hunting parties. In Montana, Jake Morrison drove his pickup truck to the Billings National Guard Armory, where a line of vehicles stretched for miles. Farmers, mechanics, teachers, and retirees were all waiting to collect military equipment. The scene was being repeated at over 3,000 locations across the country. "Morrison Jake, former staff sergeant, 2nd Ranger Battalion," he told the guard sergeant at the equipment desk. The sergeant checked his computer and grinned. "Well, I'll be damned. The legendary Ghost 7. Sir, we've got some special gear set aside for operators of your caliber." 20 minutes later, Jake walked out with enough ammunition to fight a small war, a military-grade communication system, and intelligence packets that detailed everything the government had learned about alien weaknesses. America was distributing the tools of war to its own citizens, turning the entire country into an armed camp. But the real shock came when the Empire's orbital sensors detected what was happening in American cities. Instead of the chaos and panic they expected, they saw organized movement that looked suspiciously like military mobilization. In Detroit, former auto workers who'd been laid off for years were using their mechanical expertise to modify civilian vehicles into armored fighting platforms. They welded steel plates onto pickup trucks, mounted heavy machine guns on school buses, and turned delivery vans into mobile ammunition depots. "These aliens think they're so smart with their fancy ships," grumbled Bill Patterson, a 50-year-old former Ford assembly line supervisor. "But I bet they never tried to fix a transmission with a broken hydraulic jack and a prayer. We've been making do with less for our whole lives." The improvised vehicles looked like something from a post-apocalyptic movie, but they were built by people who understood machinery at a fundamental level. When alien patrols encountered these rolling fortresses, they found that superior technology didn't matter much when 30-caliber machine guns were firing from behind 6 inches of steel plate. In the rural South, an even more terrifying development was taking place. Generations of moonshiners, hunters, and farmers were combining their skills to create weapons that defied galactic military doctrine. They built explosives from fertilizer, constructed sniper hides that were invisible even to alien sensors, and organized hunting parties that moved through forests like ghosts. "Y'all don't understand," explained Bobby Sue Garrison, a 60-year-old grandmother who ran a small farm in Alabama. "My daddy taught me to hunt before I could properly walk. My granddaddy fought in Vietnam and my great-granddaddy killed Nazis in France. These space varmints picked the wrong family to mess with. Bobby Sue's hunting party consisted of 12 family members ranging in age from 16 to 78. They knew every inch of their county's terrain, could track a wounded deer through a thunderstorm, and had enough weapons to outfit a small army. When Empire forces entered their area, they simply vanished, along with several alien patrols. The Empire's command ship detected massive movement across the North American continent, but they couldn't understand what they were seeing. Their sensors showed millions of humans moving with purpose, carrying weapons, and organizing into small tactical units. It looked like the entire population was transforming into a military force. "This is impossible," Ambassador Zexthu raged at his tactical display. "Civilians don't behave this way. They should be fleeing in panic, not organizing into combat units." Commander Veltar studied the sensor data with growing concern. "Sir, our xenosociologists are reporting that this species appears to have evolved a unique social structure. Their civilian population has extensive military training, access to military-grade weapons, and cultural traditions based around organized violence." "Organized violence?" Zexthu demanded. "Sir, they have recreational activities that involve shooting targets for accuracy, hunting wild animals for food, and competitive combat sports. Their entertainment media focuses heavily on warfare, survival scenarios, and resistance against superior forces. It's as if their entire culture has been preparing for exactly this type of invasion." What the Empire couldn't comprehend was that American culture had been shaped by centuries of conflict. The Revolutionary War, Civil War, 2 world wars, and decades of military actions had created a society where warrior skills were passed down through generations. Video games taught tactics, movies provided inspiration, and hunting seasons maintained marksmanship skills. In Texas, former Marine Captain Rodriguez had organized 3 counties into a coordinated defense network. Ranch roads became supply lines, hunting clubs became command posts, and local radio stations provided communication between scattered units. "Listen up," Rodriguez addressed a gathering of over 200 volunteers in a high school gymnasium. "These aliens are good soldiers, but they're fighting by a playbook. They expect us to act like every other species they've conquered. Well, we're not like every other species." The crowd included teachers, mechanics, store clerks, and retirees. Ordinary Americans who'd transformed themselves into a guerrilla army in less than a week. "We've got advantages they can't understand. We know this land better than they ever will. We've got more guns than some small countries. And most importantly, we've got something they've never faced before: Americans who are really, truly pissed off." The gymnasium erupted in cheers and applause. Outside, alien reconnaissance drones recorded the gathering, but couldn't interpret what they were seeing. To their sensors, it looked like a religious ceremony or community celebration. What they were actually witnessing was the most dangerous force in human history: Americans who'd decided that someone needed killing. The Empire's advanced technology and superior numbers meant nothing against people who'd inherited the genetic memory of ancestors who'd crossed oceans to fight for freedom, walked across continents to find better lives, and built a civilization on the principle that sometimes violence was the only answer to tyranny. The orbital bombardment would begin soon, but the Empire was about to discover that you can't defeat an idea with superior firepower, and the idea that had built America, that free people would rather die fighting than live as slaves, was about to teach the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. The first orbital bombardment began at dawn over Los Angeles. Plasma beams from the Empire ships carved through the morning sky like the finger of an angry god, turning skyscrapers into molten slag and creating craters where shopping malls had stood just minutes before. Ambassador Zexthu watched the destruction from his command ship with grim satisfaction. This is how civilized warfare is conducted. Overwhelming force applied from an untouchable position. The humans will surrender within hours, but the Empire had made a fundamental mistake about human psychology. Instead of breaking American resistance, the orbital bombardment had awakened something far more dangerous than individual soldiers or local militias. It had awakened American anger. In underground bunkers across the country, Americans watched live satellite feeds of their cities being destroyed. They saw their homes burning, their neighbors dying, and their civilization being systematically erased by an enemy they couldn't reach or retaliate against. "Sir, Colonel Martinez reported to General Stone. Population centers are taking massive casualties, but we're not detecting any signs of surrender. If anything, recruitment for local militia units has increased by 300% since the bombardment began. Stone nodded grimly. He'd expected this response. Americans didn't surrender when attacked, they got angry. And angry Americans were the most dangerous force on the planet. Colonel, implement Operation Haymaker. All nuclear missile silos are authorized to launch on my command. And get me a line to our submarine fleet. Sir, the aliens' ships have defensive shields. Our nuclear weapons might not penetrate their defenses. Stone smiled coldly. Colonel, we're not targeting their ships. We're targeting them. Meanwhile, in the ruins of downtown Houston, former Navy SEAL Commander Rick Sullivan crawled through the rubble of what had been a bank building just hours before. His team of 12 volunteers moved like shadows through the devastation, avoiding alien cleanup crews that were sweeping the area. Skipper, whispered Chief Petty Officer Williams, we've got eyes on a landing party about 200 meters south. Looks like they're setting up some kind of communication relay. Sullivan studied the alien position through his binoculars. The Empire forces had landed to establish a forward command post, confident that the orbital bombardment had eliminated all resistance in the area. They were about to learn that you can't kill an idea with plasma beams. Here's what we're going to do, Sullivan told his team. We're going to show these space bastards what Navy SEALs do to people who attack American cities. The assault lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. The alien communication post vanished in a series of explosions that could be heard for miles. When Empire reinforcements arrived, they found only the smoldering remains of their equipment and a message spray-painted on a nearby wall in English. Remember Houston, U.S. Navy SEALs. Similar attacks were occurring across every bombardment zone. Instead of cowering in shelters, Americans were organizing revenge strikes against any alien forces that came within reach. The Empire had turned American cities into rubble, but they'd also turned every surviving American into a potential terrorist. In Montana, Jake Morrison watched the news reports on a battery-powered television in his improvised mountain hideout. The footage showed his daughter's school being vaporized by an alien plasma beam. The building where she'd learned to read, where she'd played with her friends, where she'd hugged him goodbye just last week, all of it reduced to a glowing crater. Jake set down the television and picked up his rifle. His hands were perfectly steady as he checked the scope calibration, but something had changed in his eyes. The professional soldier was gone, replaced by something much more dangerous, a father whose child had been threatened. Ghost Command, this is Ghost 7. He spoke into his radio, requesting permission to engage in advanced harassment operations. Ghost 7, this is Command. What did you have in mind? Jake looked up at the alien ships hanging in the sky like mechanical vultures. I want to shoot down a spaceship with a hunting rifle. There was a long pause on the radio. Ghost 7, that's impossible. Their ships are armored against nuclear weapons. Command, with respect, I don't need to destroy the ship. I just need to kill the crew. And I've been shooting things that didn't want to die for my entire adult life. What Jake had realized was something the Empire's engineers had overlooked. Their ships were designed to withstand massive energy weapons and nuclear explosions. But they weren't designed to stop a patient sniper with unlimited ammunition and nothing left to lose. Jake spent 2 days tracking the movement patterns of low-altitude reconnaissance drones. He studied their flight paths, identified their landing zones, and calculated firing solutions for targets that were moving at over 200 miles per hour. When the next drone descended to scan a destroyed town, Jake was waiting on a ridgeline 1,200 meters away. The modified Barrett roared, and a tungsten core bullet designed to penetrate tank armor struck the drone's sensor array at precisely the right angle. The alien pilot never knew what hit him. One moment he was conducting routine surveillance. The next moment his control systems were destroyed, and his aircraft was tumbling toward the ground at terminal velocity. Jake watched through his scope as the drone crashed into a mountainside and exploded. He'd just proved something important. Alien technology could be defeated by human determination and superior marksmanship. Ghost Command, this is Ghost 7. Splash 1 alien aircraft. I repeat, the target is down. Ghost 7, how in God's name did you manage that? Simple, Command. I shot the bastard. Word of Jake's success spread through the resistance network like wildfire. Within hours, sniper teams across the country were attempting similar shots. Most failed, but enough succeeded to create a new problem for the Empire. Their low-altitude aircraft were no longer safe from ground fire. In his command ship, Ambassador Zexthu received reports that made his blood run cold. His ground forces were being systematically eliminated, his aircraft were being shot down by individual riflemen, and the orbital bombardment had somehow made the human resistance stronger instead of weaker. "Sir," Commander Veltar reported nervously, "we're detecting massive energy signatures from the human military installations. It appears they're preparing to launch ballistic missiles." Zexthu's mandibles clicked dismissively. "Let them launch their primitive rockets. Our shields can deflect anything these savages can produce." But General Stone wasn't planning to attack the alien ships. He was planning something much more direct and much more terrifying. "All units, this is Stone. Operation Haymaker is authorized. Repeat, Operation Haymaker is authorized. Target package is confirmed and weapons are free." Across the American heartland, missile silos opened and ICBMs streaked into the sky. But these weren't heading toward the alien ships. They were heading toward other targets. Targets that would force the Empire to come down and fight on humanity's terms. The nuclear warheads detonated simultaneously over 12 major cities, but not at ground level. They exploded in the upper atmosphere, creating electromagnetic pulses that fried every piece of electronic equipment for hundreds of miles in every direction. The aliens' advanced technology became useless scrap metal. Their shields failed, their weapons stopped working, and their communication systems went dead. For the first time in the war, Empire forces were stuck on the ground with no technological advantages. What they faced now wasn't a civilization. It was 20 million armed Americans who were really angry about having their country bombed from orbit. And Americans had been perfecting the art of killing their enemies with simple weapons for over 200 years. The real war was about to begin. In the electromagnetic wasteland that had once been Kansas, Shadowblade Commander Kethavor stumbled through a cornfield, his advanced armor now nothing more than dead weight. The human electromagnetic pulse had destroyed every piece of Empire technology within 1,000 miles, leaving his assault team stranded on a hostile planet with no communication, no air support, and no way home. "This is impossible," Kethavor growled to his surviving soldiers. "We are the apex warriors of a galactic empire. We have conquered entire star systems. We cannot be defeated by a species that still uses chemical propulsion." But as he spoke, Kethavor heard something that made his alien blood run cold. The distant sound of internal combustion engines growing closer. The humans were coming, and their primitive technology was completely unaffected by the electromagnetic pulse. Jake Morrison drove his modified pickup truck across the prairie, following tire tracks that only someone who'd spent his life hunting could detect. In the truck bed, his hunting dogs whined nervously as they caught an alien scent on the wind. Behind him, a convoy of vehicles stretched across the horizon. Farmers, ranchers, and hunters who'd formed an impromptu army to track down stranded alien forces. "Ghost 7 to all units," Jake spoke into his hand crank radio. "We've got tracks heading northeast toward Miller's wheat field. Spread out and surround the area. Remember, these things are dangerous even without their technology." What Jake and his volunteers were doing would have horrified military strategists from any civilized species. They were hunting sentient beings like wild animals, using tactics that had been refined over generations of tracking deer, elk, and wild boar through difficult terrain. The Empire had made the mistake of treating humans like any other conquered species. They'd expected terror, confusion, and eventual submission. Instead, they'd awakened a cultural memory that stretched back to humanity's origins as persistence hunters on the African savanna. In the cornfield, Kethavor's team could hear the vehicles getting closer. The alien commander tried to contact his ship using backup communication equipment, but even his hardened military systems had been fried by the electromagnetic pulse. "Commander," one of his soldiers reported, "the humans have surrounded our position. I count at least 50 vehicles and possibly 200 individuals." Kethavor checked his weapons. His plasma rifle was dead, his molecular blade had no power, and his armor's targeting systems were completely offline. For the first time in his military career, he was reduced to fighting with basic hand weapons against an enemy that outnumbered him 20 to 1. "We are Shadow Blades," he told his team. "We have claws, natural armor, and superior physical strength. These primitive humans cannot defeat us in direct combat. He was about to learn why humans had never relied on claws or natural armor to dominate their planet. The attack came from all directions simultaneously. The aliens never saw the humans approaching. They just heard the roar of diesel engines as pickup trucks crashed through the cornstalks from 6 different angles. The vehicles had been modified with steel bumpers, mounted machine guns, and armor plating welded together by people who understood mechanical engineering at a practical level. Kethfor leaped at the nearest truck, his claws extended and his powerful legs propelling him through the air like a living missile. He collided with the driver's side door with enough force to crush normal metal. The truck didn't even slow down. The door had been reinforced with 1/4-inch steel plate. And the driver, a rancher named Pete Sullivan who'd been fixing farm equipment since he was 12 years old, had built his vehicle to stop charging bulls. An alien warrior was just another large, dangerous animal that needed to be put down. Sullivan yanked his steering wheel hard right, using the truck's momentum to slam Kethfor into a wooden fence post. The alien's natural armor cracked under the impact, and blue blood began seeping through the brakes. "That's for bombing my daughter's school, you space bastard," Sullivan growled, backing up for another ramming attack. Around the battlefield, similar scenes played out. The aliens were stronger, faster, and better armed than individual humans. But they'd never fought an enemy that used 2-ton vehicles as weapons, coordinated their attacks with military precision, and showed absolutely no fear of hand-to-hand combat. Jake Morrison watched the battle through his scope from a ridge 500 meters away. His rifle was loaded with ammunition designed to penetrate tank armor, and he was systematically picking off any alien that tried to organize a counterattack. "Ghost Command, this is Ghost 7, he reported into his radio. "Target-rich environment. Estimate 12 hostiles, approximately 60 friendlies engaged in close combat. Request permission to provide sniper support. Ghost 7, this is Command. You are cleared hot. Show these alien bastards why we're the apex predators on this planet." Jake's first shot took off an alien warrior's head at 600 meters. His second shot crippled another alien's leg, dropping it into the path of a charging pickup truck. The third shot was pure artistry. He put a bullet through an alien's weapon hand just as it was about to attack a fallen human, saving the man's life and giving him time to scramble back to safety. The battle lasted 15 minutes. When the dust settled, 12 Shadow Blade warriors, genetically enhanced soldiers who had conquered entire worlds, lay dead in a Kansas cornfield, killed by farmers and ranchers using pickup trucks and hunting rifles. The only human casualties were minor injuries from vehicle collisions and one broken arm when Billy Henderson fell out of his truck bed. The aliens had been completely annihilated by an enemy that treated interstellar warfare like a particularly dangerous hunting season. Similar battles were raging across the American countryside. Without their technology, the Empire's ground forces were discovering that raw physical prowess meant nothing against an enemy that had spent centuries perfecting the art of killing dangerous predators with simple tools and superior tactics. In Alabama, Bobby Sue Garrison's extended family had cornered an alien patrol in their backyard swamp. The Shadow Blades found themselves trapped in terrain they couldn't navigate, hunted by humans who'd been catching alligators and wild boar in those same swamps for generations. "Y'all picked the wrong county to crash land in," Bobby Sue told her grandsons as they loaded their boats with hunting equipment. "These space varmints are about to learn why we Garrisons have been the meanest family in 3 states for over a century." The aliens tried to use their natural advantages, enhanced strength, armored skin, and superior reflexes. But those advantages meant nothing when they were stuck chest-deep in swamp mud, while humans in airboats attacked them with shotguns and fishing nets. In Detroit, the auto workers had organized hunting parties that moved through the ruins of the city like wolves. They'd built armored vehicles from salvaged car parts and armed them with weapons that ranged from military surplus to improvised explosives made from industrial chemicals. "These aliens think they're tough," said Bill Patterson, speaking to his crew as they prepared to assault another stranded Empire unit. "But they've never tried to survive a Detroit winter with no heat and no job. We've been fighting for scraps our whole lives, and now we finally got an enemy that deserves what's coming to them." Across America, the pattern repeated. Aliens with superior technology and training were being systematically hunted down and eliminated by humans using simple weapons. practical knowledge and tactics that had been refined through generations of survival in a harsh environment. In his command ship, Ambassador Zexthu stared at casualty reports that defied everything he understood about warfare. His ground forces weren't just being defeated, they were being exterminated with efficiency that approached industrial levels. "Sir," Commander Veltar reported with barely controlled panic, "we've lost contact with every ground unit within the electromagnetic pulse zones. Satellite imagery shows the humans have organized massive hunting parties that are systematically tracking down our surviving forces." "This is impossible," Zexthu raged. "They're primitives. They don't even have energy weapons." "Sir, with respect, that appears to be irrelevant. They're using their industrial capacity to build armored vehicles, their agricultural knowledge to navigate terrain, and their hunting skills to track and eliminate our soldiers. Our forces report that fighting these humans is like being hunted by an entire planet." What the Empire couldn't understand was that they'd invaded a species that had evolved to be the ultimate persistence hunters. Humans didn't rely on claws or armor or superior physical strength. They relied on intelligence, cooperation, and the ability to turn any available resource into a weapon. The Galactic Empire was about to learn that there was a big difference between conquering a civilization and invading a planet full of predators who'd been waiting their entire evolutionary history for something worthy of hunting. 3 weeks after the electromagnetic pulse, Ambassador Zexthu faced the complete collapse of his invasion force. Of the 10,000 elite Shadowblade warriors he'd deployed to Earth, fewer than 200 remained alive. The humans had hunted down his soldiers with methodical efficiency that defied every principle of galactic warfare. "Sir," Commander Veltar reported, his voice hollow with defeat, "the Empire High Command is demanding an explanation. They cannot understand how an entire invasion fleet has been defeated by a pre-spaceflight species." Zexthu stared at the tactical display showing his remaining forces trapped in a steadily shrinking perimeter around their only functional landing site in Wyoming. The humans had given them no opportunity to retreat, no chance to regroup, and no mercy when they surrendered. "Tell the High Command that we underestimated the enemy," Zexthu said finally. "This species doesn't fight like any civilization we've encountered. They fight like a force of nature." What Zexthu couldn't explain to his superiors was that humans didn't just resist conquest, they seemed to enjoy it. Every defeated alien patrol had made the human hunting parties more confident, more organized, and more bloodthirsty. It was as if warfare was humanity's natural state, temporarily interrupted by peace. In the Wyoming mountains, Jake Morrison looked down at the alien landing site through his scope. The Empire had established their final stronghold in a valley surrounded by peaks that offered perfect sniper positions. It was exactly the kind of terrain where American forces had always excelled. "Go 7 to all units," Jake spoke into his radio. "I have eyes on the target. Count approximately 50 hostiles in defensive positions around what looks like a command post. Recommend coordinated assault from multiple vectors." Around him, the largest human army ever assembled waited for the order to attack. It wasn't an official military force, it was something much more dangerous. 20,000 Americans had converged on Wyoming from every state in the Union. Farmers, mechanics, veterans, hunters, and ordinary citizens who'd decided that the alien invaders needed to be taught a permanent lesson about messing with Earth. They'd brought everything, from hunting rifles to military surplus equipment to improvised weapons that defied classification. The convoy stretched for miles across the mountain highways. Pickup trucks towing artillery pieces, school buses converted into armored personnel carriers, and RVs that had been turned into mobile command centers. General Stone coordinated the assault from a command post established in an abandoned ranger station. The old soldier looked out at his improvised army with a mixture of pride and amazement. "You know, Colonel," he said to Martinez, "I've commanded regular army units, special forces, and elite Marine battalions, but I've never seen anything like this. These people aren't fighting because they were ordered to. They're fighting because somebody had the nerve to attack their country." Martinez nodded, studying intelligence reports from forward scouts. "Sir, reconnaissance confirms that the remaining aliens have fortified positions and are well armed with whatever equipment survived the EMP. This won't be easy." Stone smiled grimly. "Colonel, these aliens made one fundamental mistake. They thought they were fighting the American military. They're actually fighting the American people. And there's a big difference between soldiers who follow orders and citizens who are defending their homes. The final battle began at dawn, but instead of the human wave assault the aliens expected, they faced something much more terrifying, a coordinated attack by people who'd spent their entire lives solving practical problems with available resources. The first wave consisted of improvised artillery, hunting clubs that had mounted surplus howitzers on farm trailers, and ranchers who'd converted crop-dusting aircraft into bombers. The alien defensive positions vanished under a barrage that combined military precision with agricultural innovation. The second wave was pure American ingenuity. Detroit auto workers had built armored vehicles that looked like something from a science fiction movie, but were constructed using assembly line techniques and materials from abandoned factories. The vehicles rolled down the mountainsides like mechanical avalanches, shrugging off alien weapons fire and crushing defensive positions under their weight. The third wave was what broke the aliens' morale completely. Thousands of individual Americans, each fighting according to their own skills and experience, but coordinating their efforts through communication networks that had been improvised from CB radios, cell phone towers, and ham radio operators. Jake Morrison provided sniper support from his position on the ridge, systematically eliminating any alien that tried to organize a counterattack. But he wasn't alone. Dozens of other snipers had taken positions throughout the mountains, creating overlapping fields of fire that turned the alien stronghold into a killing zone. Ghost 7. "This is Moonshine 6, came a voice over his radio. "I got eyes on what looks like their command center. Big ugly alien with lots of fancy decorations. Permission to take the shot." Jake smiled as he recognized the voice of Bobby Sue Garrison from Alabama. The grandmother had driven her entire extended family to Wyoming for the final battle, bringing enough weapons and ammunition to outfit a small army. "Moonshine 6, you are cleared hot. Send that space bastard to hell." Bobby Sue's shot was perfect, a 1,000-yard headshot that dropped Ambassador Zexthu as he tried to evacuate to his ship. The alien commander fell in the dirt of a planet he'd tried to conquer, killed by a grandmother who'd learned to shoot by hunting squirrels for the family dinner table. The remaining aliens tried to surrender, but they'd made one final mistake about human psychology. Americans didn't take prisoners from enemies who'd bombed their cities and killed their children. The battle became a methodical extermination, as humans with personal grudges settled scores with invaders who'd threatened their families. When the shooting finally stopped, the last organized alien resistance on Earth had been eliminated. The landing site was a smoking crater filled with the wreckage of Empire equipment, and the bodies of warriors who'd thought they were conquering primitives. But the real shock came when the human forces discovered the aliens' communication equipment was still functional. General Stone had his technicians patch into the Empire's command frequency, and for the first time in galactic history, a pre-spaceflight species broadcast a message to the stars. "This is General Marcus Stone, representing the United States of America and the planet Earth." Stone spoke into the alien transmitter. "Your invasion force has been completely destroyed. Your soldiers are dead. Your technology has been captured. And we've learned some very interesting things about your star charts and military capabilities." There was a long silence on the Empire frequency before a response came in accented but understandable English. "Human General, this is Fleet Admiral Thexmar of the Galactic Empire. You have committed an act of war against a superior civilization. Surrender immediately or face annihilation." Stone laughed, a sound that was broadcast across dozens of star systems. "Admiral, let me explain something about humans. We don't surrender to bullies, we don't negotiate with terrorists, and we sure as hell don't back down from a fight just because somebody claims they're superior. Your primitive world cannot stand against the full might of the Empire." "Maybe not," Stone admitted. "But here's what you need to understand about Earth. We've been fighting wars for our entire recorded history. We've perfected the art of killing our enemies using whatever materials are available. And thanks to your dead soldiers, we now have access to faster-than-light technology and star charts that show us exactly where you live." The implications of Stone's words spread through the Empire command frequency like wildfire. A species that had just wiped out an entire invasion force using primitive weapons now had access to advanced technology and detailed intelligence about Empire military installations. "So, here's what's going to happen," Stone continued. "You're going to withdraw all Empire forces from this sector and leave Earth alone permanently. Because if you don't, we're going to visit your worlds and show you what American industrial capacity looks like when it's focused on weapons production. The threat wasn't empty. American engineers were already reverse engineering captured alien technology, and American factories were retooling to produce spacecraft and weapons based on Empire designs. Within months, Earth would have a space fleet built using the same techniques that had produced 50,000 aircraft during World War II. But more importantly, humans had proven something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. They'd demonstrated that technological superiority meant nothing against a species that refused to surrender, adapted instantly to new conditions, and treated warfare as both a science and an art form. The Galactic Empire had tried to conquer Earth and instead had awakened something that would haunt their nightmares for generations to come. Humans with a grudge and the industrial capacity to do something about it. As Jake Morrison drove his pickup truck home through the Wyoming mountains, he looked up at the stars and smiled. The aliens had wanted to see what humans could do when threatened. Now they knew. And across the galaxy, the Galactic Empire was about to discover that there was a big difference between ruling